You want to close that door, Barbara?
Yeah.
Okay, we need the sound test or something.
So we're good to go. We're good.
Okay, everybody good? Okay. My name is Les Weisbrod. I'm a medical malpractice lawyer. We're here today because we're filing a suit this morning over the wrongful death of Joy Barbera. With me here today is Peter Ginniger, who is the husband of Joy Barbera. Peter wanted to make sure that we inform the public about what happened to Joy so that it won't happen, hopefully, to others. Joy was a person that was an amazing person. And she worked for Microsoft. She was pretty high up at Microsoft. And she took Zipbound, which is like Ozempic, and lost 100 pounds. And so she wanted to get plastic surgery to take care of the excess skin from the weight loss. Joy did a considerable amount of research to decide where to go and who to have do her plastic surgery. And she found on the internet and through social media, Dr. Rail here in Houston. And Dr. Rail was very convincing, and her internet presence is very convincing that she was an excellent surgeon. And Dr. Rail convinced Joy that Joy could have multiple procedures at one time, including liposuction, what's known as a mommy makeover. That includes what would be known as a tummy tuck. It included, in her case, an abdominoplasty, a brachioplasty. That's where you take excess skin out of the arms. It also was going to include a mastiopexy, where you take excess skin out of the breast, and then a breast augmentation, where you put implants in the breast. So all in all, she was scheduled for 6 or 7 plastic surgery procedures at one time. And Dr. Rail assured her that this was both safe and economical. And in fact, I believe that this is money driven because I've done other cases that involve plastic surgery and bad outcomes, including a patient in Dallas who went in for a Brazilian butt lift and was paralyzed in 2017. And here, Joy paid $53,300 in advance, in cash, for these procedures, and came here to to Houston to have this done. This was very poor planning in that doing this many procedures and planning a 10-hour surgery in an outpatient ambulatory care center is not recommended by the American Plastic Surgery Society. And in fact, they warn against doing this and warn against removing more than 5,000 cc's of liposuction in an outpatient facility. Dr. Rail removed 6,600 cc's of liposuction. They also warn against, when you have liposuction, combining it with an abdominoplasty, because you can have complications with that. And they also warn against operating on more than 30% of a patient's body in one procedure in an outpatient setting. In this case, 43% of Joy's body was operated on. But the worst of all this is that in the course of this procedure, after the first hour, the anesthesiologist, Dr. Ching, in this case, began administering vasopressors to keep up Joy's blood pressure. And that went on for 9 hours. So instead of stopping the surgery and sending Joy to the hospital, they proceeded forward. And Joy's blood pressure was low. That's called hypotension. There are 2 anesthesia records. I've been doing this for over 40 years, and I don't know that I've ever seen a case before that had 2 anesthesia records in it. The original anesthesia record in this case appears to have been filled out before the surgery started, and everything on it is pristine. The blood pressures are fine, everything's normal. The revised anesthesia record starts with the vasopressors at 9:30 in the morning, and it records blood pressure of 90/60 by around 12:30. But we know that the blood pressures were likely lower than that, because when Joy gets to the recovery room in this outpatient surgery center, the Memorial Ambulatory Surgery Center, when she gets to the recovery room, her blood pressure is as low as 55/35 when the vasopressors are not being given. And they keep her in the recovery room for an additional 2 hours. And it's clear that she's bleeding and needs a transfusion. And they don't have any blood at this surgery center where they're doing this 10-hour surgery that can certainly have complications, including bleeding. So here's the anesthesia record, and here's the one that says revised on it. Even the revised one is inaccurate, we know, because of Joy's condition. Also, Joy's body temperature got down to 90 degrees Fahrenheit, which is hypothermia. And that is something that's known to cause additional bleeding and can cause what's known as DIC, disseminated intravascular coagulopathy. Despite that, the nurses in the facility and Drs. Rail and Dr. Ching didn't do anything to warm Joy up during this time period. So between the low blood pressure, the low body temperature, the need for blood, Joy needed to be sent to a hospital, and that wasn't done until it was too late. And Joy passed away the next day as a result of shock. The autopsy talks about hemorrhagic shock and a shock liver. In addition, they found fat emboli in the lungs, which came from the liposuction. So this is not just one error. This is a series of negligent and grossly negligent acts. It's a series of where checks and balances went out the window. Normally, you would expect that if there's two doctors, one of them is going to catch the errors and tell the other doctor, and they're going to do something about it. You expect that when there's nurses, if the doctors are not doing the right thing, the nurses are going to speak up and advocate for the patient, which is part of the nursing license. It's called checks and balances. It's called a safety net. It failed completely here with Joy Barbera. In addition to all of that, when Joy started this surgery at this surgery center, they recorded her weight is 154 pounds. On autopsy, her weight was 204 pounds. That was a result of the 50 pounds of fluid that they put into Joy at the surgery center without giving her blood or blood products like fresh frozen plasma. So that also went to cause the delusional effect to where she's not able to clot and ultimately sends her into hemorrhagic shock. So this is a horrible, horrible case and a horrible tragedy, but one that was completely preventable, number one. And number two, one that illustrates the problems with going for outpatient surgery that's going to be lengthy and complex in an ambulatory surgery center as opposed to doing it in the hospital. And if you look at the websites and the advertising that this practice does and that this ambulatory surgery center does, it's to lure patients in with that it's safe, that it's just like being in a hospital. And the ambulatory surgery center goes so far to say that they have quality control and that they have integrity and that they intend to own up to their mistakes and do the right thing by their patient. Yet the law in Texas requires us to send out a notice letter, a 60-day notice letter before we file suit. The reason for that is to give an opportunity to settle and for the defendants who get that letter to either settle or turn it over to their insurance companies to settle. Not only have we not heard anything from any of these doctors or their insurance companies, we had to threaten to sue just to get the medical records. When Peter asked for the medical records, they gave him a very abbreviated version of the medical records that did not include either one of these anesthesia records. Only when we told them that we were going to file suit to get the records and for attorney's fees just to get the records, did we get the records and discover that there were two anesthesia records and discover that there were errors even in those records. So this is really, really bad care, and there certainly isn't any integrity here in terms of wanting to do the right thing, like this surgery center advertises on their website. The other thing that we want to make sure that the public is aware of are the limitations on damages for death in a medical malpractice case in the state of Texas. There's a $250,000 cap on the pain and suffering, the loss, companionship, love, and affection for the loss of a spouse in a case like this in Texas. 250,000 shared limit for both Dr. Rail and Dr. Ching, which amounts to 125,000 each, and 250,000 for the ambulatory surgery center. On top of that cap for the pain and suffering, there's an overall absolute death cap in medical malpractice cases. It's tied to the cost of living index because this law went into effect back in 2003. And now the overall cap is a little bit under $2,600,000. That's the maximum that could be collected in a wrongful death case. And that's if the deceased has economic losses, like they're a high wage earner, which Joy was. But this illustrates how unfair this is. We're in an election year, and it's important that people hold their representatives accountable and hold them accountable for having laws like this where damages are capped, and it's so unfair over the loss, in this case, of a 48-year-old woman who had a lot of life in front of her, and we have these kinds of caps. So we're also hoping that this will illustrate to the public the problems with having these kinds of caps on these kinds of cases in Texas. I've talked for a while here, and I'm sure you may have some questions, but before we get to questions, I know that Peter has prepared some comments. He wants to tell you and tell the world about Joy and about his relationship with Joy. And so he's prepared a little something to read because when we went over this the other day, he was very emotional about it, and we thought it would help if he had something prepared that he can read. So you ready to do that, Peter? Okay, go ahead.
Joy was the most beautiful person I've ever known. Beautiful not only in appearance, but in spirit. She was filled with life, love, kindness, and she had a rare gift, the ability to make everyone around her feel seen, valued, and cared for. Wherever she went, Joy brought light. She had a smile that could ease the pain and a heart that was always open to helping others, often putting their needs in front of her own. Joy and I both came from humble beginnings, and through our love and commitment to one another, we built a meaningful and beautiful life together. During our 20 years as a couple, 14 of which we were married, we created countless memories with family, friends, which I will forever cherish. We traveled the world together, side by side, sharing adventures, laughter, and experiences that strengthened our bond and filled our lives with joy. Together, we raised my two incredible sons, building a family rooted in love, trust, and togetherness. We were more than just husband and wife. We were lovers, partners, caregivers, and best friends. We supported one another through life's challenges and celebrated each triumph together. Joy was my person, my home, my comfort, my greatest source of happiness. Since Joy's death, my world has been completely turned upside down. I have been forced to navigate a reality I never imagined. One filled with overwhelming anxiety, deep sadness, confusion, loneliness, and profound loss of identity. All of my dreams I once held, dreams that were ours, have been shattered. Plans we made together, hopes of our future, and the life we envision no longer exists. I am now learning to live alone. I wake up each morning without her presence, without a good morning kiss, or a simple comfort of sharing a cup of coffee, and without conversation. Throughout the day, the silence in our home is constant, broken only by the ache of missing her voice. The voice of my loving wife that once filled our home with warmth. At night, I go to bed alone, without her beside me, without a goodnight embrace, without the comfort of knowing that she's there. Our dreams of retiring, traveling, and spending our later years surrounded by family and friends have vanished. My heart has been broken forever. My life has been altered in ways I'm still struggling to understand. I cry every day. I ache every day. I live with emotional pain that never fully fades. And right now, my life feels like a living nightmare, one from which there is no escape. Each day is something I must endure, doing the best I can to survive in a world that no longer makes sense without joy. Thank you.
The negligence in this case is so gross and was so preventable that this case is the closest thing that I have seen to murder by malpractice. And we want everyone to know that and to know that they need to be very careful in getting plastic surgery at an outpatient surgery center, particularly multiple procedures for a lengthy period of time. Questions?
Before we start, do you mind if I change the batteries out on that microphone?
Go ahead. Sure.
I have a question for you, Les. So you said that this lawsuit argues that this procedure should have never happened at an outpatient facility. What safeguards do you believe were missing that could have saved Joy's life?
Well, there were a lot. There's a number of them. The first one would be having blood for transfusion at the surgery center, which apparently they didn't have. You know, the other ones would be, you know, having policies and procedures that address keeping the patient warm and address the low blood pressures, so that if you have a patient in that situation, you don't just keep continuing the surgery in the outpatient surgery center. That patient needs to go to the hospital.
Now, you said that it's not recommended if you're doing this many surgeries to do it at an outpatient facility. Was this not made clear? Or was this message not conveyed during Joy's initial conversation with the facility?
To the contrary, they encouraged and sold having all these procedures done at one time at this facility. That's the problem. Patients are relying on doctors to advise them and tell them what's safe, what's not safe. Joy was assured that all of these procedures could be done at one time safely at this outpatient surgery center. In fact, it's sold like it's concierge service, and that you're going to get treated better at the outpatient surgery center, and it's going to be so much easier than going to a hospital, and so much nicer in the atmosphere that you have and the facilities that you have. And, you know, it's all part of the mommy makeover experience. So a regular patient that doesn't have any kind of medical knowledge and doesn't know these things, this sounds great to them. And, you know, it's being sold to them for cash and cash only.
What do you ultimately hope comes out of this lawsuit?
Well, number one, we want compensation for the loss of Joy. Number two, we want a finding or admission that everybody involved in this did wrong. And we want, as we're doing here today, we want to try to prevent this from happening to somebody else.
Have you heard from the defendants at all?
Not a word.
They are aware of the lawsuit.
Well, they're aware because we've sent them notice letters that we're going to file the lawsuit. Today, the lawsuit is actually filed here in Harris County. I don't know if we have a file marked copy yet. Now, it takes a while. So what's happened, you know, it used to be you could go to the courthouse, give them the paper, they'd file stamp it, and you're done. You can't do that anymore. It's all electronic. So you send it in and you get back, it's filed, but you don't get back for hours, sometimes a day, what court it's in. So that's the status that we're in, is we've just filed it. And then all of these defendants are going to be personally served with the lawsuit.
If Mr. Peter is willing to talk a little bit, I know during the statement it was very moving and very powerful. If you could talk directly to people who are listening, tell me why it was so important for you to speak out on behalf of your wife.
First of all, I think it's about getting justice for Joy. What she endured, she shouldn't have had to have been through, and in my opinion, kind of been caught up in this whole social media thing of looking good and this doctor's office post. And the other thing is, you know, if this could prevent one other person from going through this, then that's worth it.
Tell me a little bit more about Joy. So you said that she brought smiles to everyone. She had a lot of light. What kind of person was she?
Oh my God. So Joy was the life of the room. She walked in the room and with a smile, she just lit up the room. She was a person who people gravitated to. So friendly, always laughing, always concerned about other people, her kindness, helping strangers out. I have so many memories of her just helping strangers out. She just loved people. And, you know, she was an angel. She was just a beautiful person. Yeah.
Being a mommy myself and having had a baby less than 2 years ago, I totally understand. As a woman, when your body changes, sometimes, you know, you just need that little mommy makeover. It makes you feel good. Tell me how excited she was for this procedure and, you know, wanting to look her best.
So the morning before her surgery, she reached out to me and she sent me a picture of her. She had the biggest smile on her face. And I can imagine she was envisioning what she was going to see of herself. And that's the last picture I have of her. Thank God it was with her big, beautiful smile. And her headspace at the time was she was going to be in a good place afterwards. I would say that.
And you and Joy had no idea this could go so wrong at all at the time, right? Up until that, she'd done a lot of research. You said that she was excited. She had met with this doctor. She felt really confident with this facility. Did she ever give you an inkling, like, I don't know, it's an outpatient facility, ever?
No, in fact, she found on social media that there was this surgeon was supposed to have been voted Surgeon of the Year. Like, Joy is very confident in this specific surgeon, also because they were the ones that said we'll do everything. Like they would do what she wanted in, you know, in one surgical procedure where that, you know, others might not have done that.
If those 7 defendants are watching, including the surgeon, anesthesiologist, the nurses, the facility, what do you want to say to them?
Shame on you for not putting my wife first, for putting your greed first, for moving forward when you should have stopped. Now my wife is no longer here, and that's not right. And something needs to be done. And if this can be prevented from happening to someone else, for you doing this to someone else, let this be done.
Thank you, Peter.
So I just want to point out that we have handouts here for you that include expert reports that are being filed with the case from a expert plastic surgeon that's well published from San Francisco, a anesthesiologist from Stanford University, an operating room nurse from Stanford University, and a recovery room or post-anesthesia care unit nurse from Phoenix, who is published on the standards for nurses for PACU care. And the reports are pretty detailed and I would say pretty damning about what happened here and who did what wrong. So I would refer you to those as well for any further questions that you might have.
And I did have a question about, let me go back to my notes real quick while you were talking. The 2 reports that you had mentioned, the 2 anesthesia records. So Was the facility not willing to share initially because there were? I was a little confused about that. Why were there two? First of all, and you said one was did not have all the accurate information. Is that correct?
Well, I believe that the first one was filled out before the surgery ever started. That it was, everything was pristine. All the blood pressures were normal. So it was, it wasn't right. And I can only imagine that, if you have an anesthesiologist who's incredibly lazy and doesn't really want to do their job very well, that they could fill something like that out before it started so they didn't have to keep up with it during the procedure, assuming that everything's going to be fine. Everything wasn't fine. Joy was taken to the hospital. So I can only imagine that the anesthesiologist decided, this isn't going to look good. I better go back and do a revised anesthesia record, which is what we got. And as I said, I don't believe the revised anesthesia record is correct either. So this is just gross negligence on the part of the anesthesia care in this case.
And where is Joy from? Where are you guys from?
Originally, we're from Long Island, New York. And then in 2020, Joy and I moved to North Carolina, right outside of Raleigh. And been there for around 6 years now. Yeah.
And she specifically came to Houston for this procedure and to be with this doctor, correct?
Yes.
Okay, anything else? I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
Les, I did have a question off record. The defendants. So I had reached out to